And so they did. And so they developed a salute too. They had this special, well, it wasn't a three-finger salute, but, they had this special wave that they did to each other when they greeted each other. And, it was the strangest thing you ever saw. And one of the reasons, by the way, that this is important, in Canada, Technocracy Inc. was actually outlawed for 2 years for being a subversive organization. I think they misread it, maybe. The government up there might have misread Technocracy when they outlawed them. Maybe not, though. There's another book on that for me at some point, probably.
Yeah.
But there was a definite influence from Nazi Germany on the technocracy movement, at least visually, okay? And when Hitler really rose to power, a lot of Americans got nervous just about that appearance, the appearance is the same, because these people tended to look like the SS.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, they didn't quite grasp it. And I don't know that I'm not saying there was a direct connection, but it was very suspicious in any case. And here they are in their little uniforms. You see them all over. They even had automobiles. They convinced General Motors to develop a paint called Technocracy Gray.
Really?
You could order cars, and many people did. They ordered cars that were painted with Technocracy Gray. They had buses, too, that they bought that had Technocracy Gray.
Technocracy Gray.
Yeah, that's really
That's very interesting.
That's not to be confused with 50 Shades of Gray, believe me. But, it was just the weirdest appearing thing you ever saw in your life. So some highlights on technocracy, just as we get into it. By nature, technocracy produces volumes of inviolable regulations that are science-based. That's number one. These people write regulations like you've never seen. And number two, it does in the end create totalitarian control, but I stress to mention it is not socialism and it is not communism. I'll explain that in just a second, why I say that.
Excellent.
It seeks to replace price-based economic system with an energy-based economic system.
Oh, yes. Energy credits, it says here.
Energy currency, energy credits. I've written about this now for about 6 years, but I'll tell you, it's all over the news today. Should you change that to carbon credits at some point? You can. You can substitute energy for carbon in this discussion anyway, all the way through. They changed the word to carbon. It was originally energy, but carbon means energy, and they know it. They say it. So, but here's the reason that socialism and communism are not in view here. Both socialism and communism and Marxism as well, and fascism, they're all based on a price-based economy. Communism merely suggests that only the government can manage the economy. That's what they said, but it's still a price-based economy. Scarcity, of course, is an issue in communism, but you still buy things with currency, with money. And the government manages the economy. Well, it's the same thing with socialism, the redistribution of wealth. Well, what's wealth? Well, wealth is money. It's currency. It's the green dollar bills. It's the Swiss francs. It's the euros. It's whatever, the Chinese yuans. And so when you have an energy-based system that is going to replace money with energy credits or an energy currency, all of a sudden, all of the economic models that we know about price-based economics goes out the door. They do not apply. And we'll see how crazy this is in just a minute.
Excellent.
So just to introduce their concept from the Technocracy Study Course, this was written in 1934. You got to hand it to engineers. They're good about documenting stuff. They're very good at that. You give an engineer a project, he gets out his ruler, he gets out his quadrille paper, his pencil, and he starts writing down requirements, and he's writing down notes and stuff on how we're going to, how can we engineer this project to make it work. They did that back in those days. They had 7 principal requirements to make technocracy happen. I'm going to read you the first 5. They're the important ones.
All right.
The first requirement, and this is a direct quote, register on a continuous 24-hour per day basis the total net conversion of energy. I'll just let that sink just a minute here.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, quote, by means of the registration of energy converted and consumed, make possible a balanced load. Parenthetical comment, isn't this exactly what you hear your utilities talking about?
Almost every day.
Balanced load, registration of energy converted and consumed. Okay. Number 3, quote, provide a continuous inventory of all production and consumption. Number 4, quote, provide a specific registration of the type, kind, etc. of all goods and services where produced and where used. Parenthetical statement now. Think about all of the data mining of your financial records and transactions that are going on seemingly by everybody in the corporate world and the government as well. Number 5, quote, provide specific registration of the consumption of each individual plus a record and description of the individual. Close quote. Those were the first 5 requirements of technocracy for which they did not have the technology in those days to accomplish. But they do today, and this is exactly what we see happening today. These 5 requirements are being played out at every level of American society and global society as well, but we know America best, so let's talk about America. And this is a global thing, by the way, not just America, but we're Americans, we're concerned about our country first.
Sure.
So providing the specific registration and consumption of each individual plus a record and description of the individual, doesn't this sound suspiciously like all of the data requirements that the NSA is sucking up everything in sight from the whole, seemingly the whole planet, but especially here?
That's exactly what it sounds. That's what it is.
Isn't this what Obamacare is all about? Sucking up data like there's no tomorrow? Isn't this what Common Core is all about? Sucking up data, up to 400 data points on every student in America to fit into this master information system? You see, this is technocracy expressing itself. They can't get enough data. We'll talk about that as we go along too. Okay, well, we got to bring the Trilateral Commission into this now. Let's kind of put that discussion of technocracy on the back burner just for a second and talk about the Trilateral Commission.
All right.
In 1979, Barry Goldwater wrote a book called With No Apologies. He was the only politician that I know ever that mentioned the words Trilateral Commission in public. I don't know that any other ever has. If they did, it might have been cursing something. I don't know, but I never heard it publicly. He wrote in his book, quote, the Trilateral Commission is international and is intended to be the vehicle for multinational consolidation of the commercial and banking interests by seizing control of the political government of the United States. The Trilateral Commission represents a skillful, coordinated effort to seize control and consolidate the 4 centers of power: political, monetary, intellectual, and ecclesiastical.
This is monstrous, Patrick.
It's monstrous. I'll tell you a little side story. I gotta digress. I think we got time.
We've got all the time you want. I'll sit here all day listening to you.
When my office was in Scottsdale, Arizona at the time, and my printing and publishing operation was there, and we were writing about the Trilateral Commission. I think we'd already published 1 book, Trilaterals Over Washington. And we were just kind of, I don't know, I say fat, dumb, and happy. You know, just get along, and, you know, we're doing stuff. Tony Sutton didn't live in Arizona, but we visited frequently. But my office was in Scottsdale. And we were very casual in my office because we had a printing operation as well as everything else. So we were always casually dressed, whatever. And one day, this guy walks in a business suit. I mean, it's one of those nice pinstripe type suits that you think the FBI wears, you know, on television, right? This guy walks in, he kind of stocky, kind of a gruff looking guy. And he walks in and he says, I want to know what you know about the Trilateral Commission. I about had a brick.
Yes.
I thought, oh man, it's curtains. He's going to pull out a gun and start
spraying curtains.
It's curtains for me. And as it turned out, I said, I was looking a little bit, kind of like, oh my gosh, what do why, who wants to know? And so anyway, he settled down a little bit at that point, and he said, well, okay, let me explain. I'm sorry, let me explain myself. And he said, I am, his name was Stephen Shattuck, and he said, I am Senator Goldwater's chief of staff. And the senator is writing a book with no apologies, right? And so he's writing a book, and he has some information about the Trilateral Commission he's going to include in his book, and he wants to know if you guys, kind of see things the same way, or if you have different research. And I thought, dang, that's cool for one thing, that he would, think enough to do a little bit extra research to find out. But as I told him, well, this is what we found. I gave him a copy of newsletters and, research papers we had and stuff. And I said, take this back to the senator. And, we're on the same page on this. And he did. And this was a statement that Senator Goldwater came up with in his book with no apologies. And it wasn't because we said it. He already had it written by the time he came to us. It was just a confirmation. So yes, it's monstrous, and he really hit the nail on the head with this statement. Absolutely, and this is what we've done. So, where did the Trilateral Commission come from? Let's go back to the early days in the 1970s. It was co-founded in 1973 by David Rockefeller and Zbigniew Brzezinski. You're probably not surprised at that. The two of them floated the idea together in 1972 at a Bilderberg meeting, which they both attended. Rockefeller went and said, hey, we've got this great idea to start this group. It'd be an international group, and we'll want to include members from Japan, Europe, and America. And we're going to have this action-oriented thing and do this new international economic order thing. And of course, the Bilderberg thought that was a great idea. Everybody, hey, man, go do that. Rocky or whatever they called him, I don't know. But Brzezinski was kind of an odd thing. It was kind of the beauty and the beast. Rockefeller was very rich. He was he owned Chase Manhattan Bank. He had huge interest in oil and just stuff all over the world. But Brzezinski was a professor of political science. And he'd written this book called Between Two Ages, America's Role in the Technocratic Era in 1970. This caught Rockefeller's interest big time. And Brzezinski all of a sudden became endeared to Rockefeller as being the strategist, if you will, for the future. The beauty and the beast, the brains and the brawn. I don't know how else I could say it, but it was a marriage to them was made in heaven. To us, you might say it made in somewhere else where it's much hotter.
Right.
But here they are, and they said, wow, we'll do this. So they came back. And they started this group in the early 1973. They handpicked 289 members, the initial members from Japan, North America, and Europe to be part of this group. And from the United States itself, there were 97 people from the United States in this group. This was the first international group, action group, that had ever been created. I stress that because this is not the CFR, which is limited to North America. This was an international organization that had a specific goal in mind, policy, to create a new international economic order. And I would be the first to say on the grounds of free speech that if people want to get together and talk, they should be able to do that. You and I should be able to talk. If the Bilderberg people want to, if they want to talk, sure they can talk. They're people just like anybody else. They're welcome to their meetings and discussion. However, when you start putting shoe leather to your talk, then other people need to be involved, right?
Yes.
If you and I talk about 6 different ways to rob a bank, I mean, what if I'm writing a book, a mystery book, and I want to just discuss the ways to rob banks? People do that, for Pete's sake. It's just talk. But if I go out and I